In the dark alleys of Sicily, where ancient stone streets whisper secrets of blood and loyalty, a family name once spoken with fear still echoes across generations. They called them the Bloodline. For over a century, this Italian dynasty mastered the art of power, not through politics or royalty, but through control of money, silence, and violence. Their empire, built on blood and betrayal, became one of the most hidden financial networks in Europe. It began after World War II, when chaos ruled the streets and the black market became the real government of Italy. Amid this darkness, a Sicilian patriarch, Don Vittorio Mancini, rose from the rubble of poverty. He was not a king by crown, but by fear. He controlled the ports, the banks, and the politicians. He learned that true wealth wasn't in gold or land. It was in secrets. Secrets of men in suits, of priests, of soldiers returning from war with empty eyes and heavy hands. Vittorio used them all. He built a fortune not through force alone, but through trust, a deadly kind of trust that bound every man to his word, and every betrayal to death. By the 1960s, the Mancini bloodline had infiltrated Europe's biggest industries, construction, oil, and private banking. They laundered billions through Swiss accounts, hidden behind the names of shell companies and fake charities. Their influence stretched from Rome to London, from Monaco to New York, but power always demands a price. As the Mancinis grew richer, their enemies grew louder. The Italian government, Interpol, even the Vatican, all began to whisper the same question. How did one Sicilian family become richer than some European states? Behind closed doors, the answer was both simple and terrifying, because they owned fear itself. The Mancinis didn't just trade money, they traded lives. They controlled judges, generals, and journalists. They built a system where everyone owed them something, even those who didn't know it. And in the heart of Sicily, inside a grand villa surrounded by cypress trees and marble statues, Vittorio sat in silence every night, calculating, listening, remembering. He once told his eldest son, "Greater than power is not about how many men fear you. It's about how long they remember your name after you're gone." That quote became the foundation of their empire, and the reason their story would survive long after the blood stopped flowing. But what no one knew was that inside that same villa, hidden behind false walls and secret tunnels, was a vault said to contain not only gold, but proof of how the Mancini fortune was tied to global corruption, war profits, and the underworld of modern Europe. And decades later, that vault would be the reason the world finally began to uncover the Billion-Dollar Bloodline. After Don Vittorio Mancini's rise, Sicily entered a new era, one ruled not by politicians or priests, but by invisible kings in tailored suits. By the early 1970s, Vittorio's power had spread beyond the island. His family had become ghosts of the economy, unseen, untouchable, and everywhere. His eldest son, Lorenzo Mancini, took control of the family's financial empire. Educated in Switzerland, fluent in 4 languages, Lorenzo was not the typical Mafia heir. He didn't kill in the streets. He killed with contracts, with numbers, and with silence. He modernized the business, turning gold smuggling routes into international trade lines, and black market deals into offshore investments. Where his father ruled with fear, Lorenzo ruled with intelligence. He began buying small European banks, art galleries, and luxury hotels, each one a front for laundering millions from drug money and arms deals. The family had mastered the art of legal crime, operating in daylight, yet always in shadow. In London, financial analysts called them the Sicilian investors. In New York, Wall Street whispered their name like a curse. But in Sicily, they were still simply La Famiglia Mancini, the family that never died. Behind every smiling banker, there was a hidden signature, Mancini's. Behind every profitable construction deal in southern Italy, there was a silent partner, also Mancini. Even behind charity foundations for war victims and orphans, there was Mancini money. By the late 1970s, the family's fortune was estimated at over $3 billion, spread across Europe, Africa, and South America, but no one could trace it. Not a single document carried their true name. Lorenzo often told his men, "A rich man can be robbed, but a name that doesn't exist can never be touched." That became the bloodline's new code. But inside the mansion, peace was never real. Vittorio, the old Don, grew paranoid. He feared betrayal, not from his enemies, but from his own blood. He had 3 sons, but only one could inherit the empire: Lorenzo the Mind, Marco the Soldier, and Enzo the Ghost. Enzo, the youngest, was the most dangerous. A quiet man with dark eyes, he disappeared 4 years, rumored to have worked with foreign intelligence and arms smugglers in Africa. When he returned, he brought something with him: documents, maps, and photos, evidence of a hidden network connecting politicians, bankers, and mafia bosses from Italy to America. That secret information gave the family an advantage no one else had: control over truth. They could destroy careers, governments, even nations, with just a few pages. But the more powerful they became, the more they lost touch with what once made them strong: loyalty. Inside the marble walls of the Mancini villa, whispers began to spread. The brothers no longer trusted each other. One wanted peace, one wanted war, and one wanted everything. The seeds of betrayal were planted, and soon, blood would water the roots of the billion-dollar bloodline. By the early 1980s, the Mancini empire was no longer just a family business. It had become a shadow government. Their money flowed through oil pipelines, luxury casinos, and Swiss vaults. Their influence reached politicians in Rome, bankers in Zurich, and even generals in the Middle East. But in the heart of their empire, something was cracking. The old Don, Vittorio Mancini, now sat in silence most days, a ghost of his former self. He watched his sons from afar, knowing that the war for the throne had already begun. Lorenzo, the eldest, was the strategist, clean, cold, and careful. Marco, the middle son, led the soldiers and men loyal to the old Sicilian ways. And Enzo, the youngest, carried secrets that could destroy them all. It was Enzo who first discovered that someone was selling family information to the government. Hidden shipments, secret accounts, coded ledgers, all leaked. He suspected Marco's men. Marco swore his innocence, but in the world of the Mancinis, suspicion was enough to sign a death sentence. One night, in the spring of 1983, the villa lights went out. A storm raged over the Sicilian coast. Inside the marble halls, footsteps echoed, and a single gunshot broke the silence. When the lights returned, Marco Mancini was found dead in his study, a bullet through his chest, his hand still holding a gold crucifix. The official story said it was suicide, but everyone inside the bloodline knew the truth. Someone had executed him. The family's foundation trembled. Vittorio, too old to fight, retreated into his chapel, praying for forgiveness. Lorenzo took control of all financial assets, freezing accounts, erasing trails, and Enzo vanished again. He disappeared with the only key to the secret vault hidden beneath the villa. The same vault rumored to contain evidence of government payoffs, Vatican bank transfers, and records of arms deals that changed the course of European politics. For years, that vault remained sealed. Investigators tried to find it. None succeeded. In the shadows of Palermo, whispers grew. People spoke of a curse, that anyone who tried to expose the bloodline met a violent end. A journalist investigating their financial empire was found in a burning car near Milan. A police informant disappeared the night before his testimony. A banker in Zurich drowned mysteriously during a midnight boat trip. Each death was different, but all shared one detail. They were connected to the Mancinis. The bloodline had survived wars, betrayals, and governments. But what kept them alive wasn't just money. It was fear. Lorenzo made sure every whisper against the family was silenced. And as the 1990s approached, the Mancinis began transforming again, this time into legitimate businessmen, politicians, and investors. They changed names, burned records, and erased their past. But what they couldn't erase was the blood that built it all. Because behind every bank account and smiling face, there was still that same ghost, the unseen hand of the billion-dollar bloodline. The 1990s changed everything. The Berlin Wall had fallen, the Cold War had ended, and Europe was shifting faster than ever before. But while the world celebrated freedom, the Mancinis celebrated invisibility. Lorenzo Mancini had successfully transformed the family from feared criminals into respected businessmen. The newspapers called them the new Italian elite. But behind their luxury, estates and charity foundations, the old blood still flowed. The family's money was no longer hidden in Sicily. It was scattered across offshore banks, from the Cayman Islands to Luxembourg. Every transaction was layered through shell companies, each one leading to another false trail. Even investigators from Interpol admitted that tracing the Mancini money was like chasing smoke through mirrors. But one man hadn't forgotten. Enzo Mancini, the ghost son, reappeared in 1996 after a decade in hiding. He returned not to reclaim the empire, but to expose it. He had grown disgusted by what the bloodline had become. His father was gone, his brother was murdered, and Lorenzo, the once calm strategist, had turned into a ruthless oligarch, a man who saw loyalty as weakness. Enzo carried with him a single leather briefcase containing documents that could destroy the family forever. Inside were photocopies of financial ledgers, coded accounts, and secret transactions linking the Mancinis to political corruption across Europe. He met with a journalist from La Repubblica in Rome, promising to hand over everything. But before the meeting could happen, Enzo disappeared once again. This time, for good. His car was found abandoned on a cliffside road near the Amalfi Coast. The keys were still in the ignition. No body was ever recovered. Some say he was murdered by his brother. Others believe he escaped under a new identity, vanishing into South America. Whatever the truth, one thing became clear. The vault beneath the villa still existed, and now only one man knew how to open it. Lorenzo ordered the entire estate sealed. The old servants were dismissed. Guards were hired from former military units. Anyone who approached the villa was turned away, or worse. Within a few years, the mansion turned into a fortress of silence. And then, one night in 2001, the impossible happened. A fire broke out in the eastern wing of the Mancini estate. Flames devoured the upper floors. The vault room, however, remained untouched. When firefighters finally broke in, they found something that stunned investigators. A hidden passage behind the chapel, leading directly to the vault chamber. Inside were boxes of cash, old ledgers, and black and white photographs. Images of powerful men shaking hands with Mafia bosses, signing documents, and attending secret meetings. But before officials could secure the evidence, the entire vault disappeared. It was emptied overnight. No one knows how. No one knows by whom. The police investigation collapsed. The case was buried. And once again, the world forgot. Yet, some say the vault's contents still exist, scattered, sold, or hidden in private collections. Others claim Lorenzo destroyed everything to erase the family's sins. But the truth may be even darker, because those who claim to have seen the documents, they say the Mancinis didn't just control Italy, they controlled history itself. The fire at the Mancini villa should have been the end of their story, but in truth, it was only the beginning of a darker chapter. When the smoke cleared, Lorenzo Mancini disappeared. Not arrested, not dead, simply gone. Interpol issued warrants, journalists searched archives, governments launched inquiries, but there was nothing, no trace, no records, no movement. It was as if the richest man in Italy had vanished into thin air. Then, months later, something strange happened. Across Europe, silent investments began appearing under a new name, Argentum Holdings. This company purchased art galleries, real estate, private banks, and shipping firms. Its operations were legitimate on paper, but investigators noticed a pattern. Every board member had distant, Sicilian roots. Every office had ties to someone once associated with the Mancinis. It didn't take long for financial experts to connect the dots. Argentum Holdings was Lorenzo's new empire, reborn, legal, and even more untouchable. He had turned the bloodline into a global corporation. While the world thought the Mafia had vanished, the Mancinis had simply evolved, moving from violence to valuation, from bullets to business. Their methods changed, but their hunger remained. Behind layers of legality, the same principles ruled: loyalty, fear, and silence. Old associates from the Sicilian underworld now wore suits and ties. Former hitmen became CEOs, and the blood that once stained cobblestone streets now flowed through financial markets. But not everyone accepted the transformation. Some of the old guard felt betrayed. To them, Lorenzo's new world of lawyers, bankers, and computers was soulless. They missed the old codes, the honor, the brotherhood, and slowly, a rebellion began brewing within the family's own network. A group known as I Fedeli, the Faithful, emerged from within the shadows of Palermo. Their mission: to reclaim the original spirit of the bloodline, to expose Lorenzo's greed, and to bring the Mancini name back to its roots. By 2005, this internal war had gone global. Corporate offices in London were bombed. Businessmen disappeared in Geneva. Millions vanished from offshore accounts overnight. The media called it the silent mafia war, a modern conflict fought not with guns, but with data, leaks, and blackmail. And in the center of it all, Lorenzo watched quietly. He controlled both sides, the rebels and the loyalists, manipulating chaos to eliminate threats and erase his past once more. By the time governments realized what was happening, it was too late. The Mancini network had already moved billions into cryptocurrencies, art, and defense companies, becoming part of the legitimate global economy itself. They were no longer an Italian crime family. They were a financial dynasty, woven into the systems that kept the world moving. And just like their ancestor Don Vittorio once said, their true power wasn't measured by money or guns. It was measured by how long people would remember their name. The Billion-Dollar Bloodline. To decades after the fire that destroyed their ancestral home, the Mancini name still carries a strange power, spoken quietly in banks, whispered in politics, and buried deep inside classified files. No one ever found Lorenzo Mancini. Some say he died in South America. Others claim he lived under a false identity, a silent shareholder in billion-dollar corporations, his true name erased, but his influence untouched. Yet even today, every few years, a new clue appears: a property sold under an unknown trust, a donation from a shell company, or a forgotten ledger discovered in an abandoned Sicilian vault. Each discovery reignites the same question: did the billion-dollar bloodline ever really end? The truth may be more terrifying than fiction, because the Mancinis were never just one family. They were a system, their way of operating, their rules of silence, their manipulation of fear and loyalty. Those didn't die with them. They were absorbed into modern finance, politics, and crime. Every government deal made in the shadows, every corporation that moves invisible money across borders, carries echoes of the bloodline's blueprint. They prove that true power doesn't come from ruling people. It comes from controlling what people depend on. And that's what the Mancinis mastered: dependency. Politicians depended on their funding. Corporations depended on their investments. Banks depended on their silence. In a way, they built an invisible empire that outlived them all. Even today, rumors persist about the missing vault. Some believe its contents, the documents, the photos, the ledgers, were divided among a secret council of financiers, each one guarding a piece of history that could bring down entire nations. Others believe the vault was never stolen at all, that it remains sealed beneath the ruins of the Mancini villa, deep underground, untouched for decades. In 2023, a team of independent researchers and journalists attempted to locate it. Using old blueprints and satellite imagery, they discovered a subterranean structure beneath the estate grounds, too deep for ordinary excavation, and heavily fortified with concrete. Authorities denied permission to dig. The investigation was shut down, and just like that, the story disappeared once more. But for those who study the secret history of power, the bloodline never truly vanished. Its fingerprints remain, hidden in offshore transactions, encrypted documents, and corporate mergers that shaped the world economy. It said that one night each year, in a small Sicilian chapel near Palermo, candles are lit by unknown hands. No one knows who they are, but every candle bears a single letter carved in wax, M, and on that night the air fills with whispers of money, of loyalty, of blood, because in Sicily they still say, the Mancinis never died. They simply became the world. The billion-dollar bloodline was never about one man or one family. It was about how corruption learned to wear a suit, and how the ghosts of old Sicily still rule from the shadows of modern civilization.